Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. It's official. West Brom have today been confirmed as being relegated from the Premier League following a defeat to Arsenal tonight. We're going to be reviewing this season for the Baggies, looking over what went wrong at the club and where they may go from here. But before we go any further, I would like to remind you all to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things will always and forever be greatly appreciated. But for now, let's get back to talking about West Brom, who have today, it is official. They have been confirmed as being relegated from the Premier League down to the Championship for next season. We're going to be talking all things West Brom in this video. Again, it's another case of, like most things this season, this being seen from a long way away. We've known that West Brom have been in terrible danger. It's just been about confirming that and it being mathematically impossible for West Brom to survive. The writing had appeared to be on the wall for a while. Their fate had seemingly been sealed. It's the news that we were expecting for a long time, and it has eventually been confirmed today. West Brom have been in a relegation zone for what feels like the entirety of this season, and not even Premier League veteran and notorious rescuer from relegation Sam Allardyce could have stopped the Baggies from returning to the Championship for this campaign. It was a season that began with former manager Slaven Bilic and ended with Sam Allardyce. Bilic was the man behind Albion's rise through the Championship to being promoted into England's top flight division before he was dismissed mid-December following a 1-1 draw with Manchester City. And at the time, he left West Brom lying 19th in the table with only one win up to that point of the season. And that was against their fellow relegation candidates, and obviously went on to become relegated side in Sheffield United. And that victory actually did come at the end of November, so it actually was a while. And mid-December, of course, the results didn't quite pick up. A 1-1 draw against Manchester City was seen to have possibly kept him in the job for a little while longer, but it wasn't to be. He was dismissed, and Sam Allardyce was his successor. So the story was obviously that the club were fearing relegation. They were fearing that relegation was almost a certainty on the cards this season, or a fight against it at the very least. So they decided to pull the trigger. They sacked Bilic and brought in Sam Allardyce, who of course came in with a reputation and a history of knowing the Premier League inside and out and helping to steady the ship at a number of Premier League clubs down the years. His style may not be the most easy on the eye, it may not be the greatest style that you'll ever see from a manager, but you can't disagree that most of the time it got the job done. Down the years, his style may have been a bit more direct and a bit basic, but you can't disagree that his style certainly got results at times, and big results at that. And that is exactly what West Brom were hoping from here. And so on paper, you look at it and you think that it may not have been a terrible appointment when you think that the main objective of this season was to survive in the Premier League for the club. It's certainly one of the more safer managerial appointments out there for a team like West Brom, and for a team that is got this goal in mind of Premier League survival. And so for a short-term plan, it didn't seem like much of a gamble. But of course, as we now know, this proved to be too big of a challenge for even Big Sam to have overcome. Since taking over as manager, Allardyce has been in charge of 22 games for the Baggies, in which they've accumulated 19 points, which clearly and obviously hasn't been good enough from their point of view, despite some good results here and there. You know, you think about the highlights of them results with, I don't know, say taking a point at Anfield against Liverpool, or beating Wolves, beating Brighton, beating Southampton, and a draw against Manchester United was also thrown in there. And even more incredibly and more bizarrely, a fantastic 5-2 victory over Chelsea, a Chelsea side that at the time were very, very difficult to beat. Still are, in fact, but at the time that was an incredible victory for them, a 5-2 thumping victory over the Blues, and gave them a bit of hope that then maybe they can pull off some sort of great escape. But as we now know, it wasn't to be. And I guess you could say that, like most other teams this season, there was just no consistency there to put together a better fight against the drop zone. The good results have been sporadic, and overall they're just not been good enough, particularly when facing the teams that were in and around them in the table. And so it may not come as a great surprise to learn that West Brom had the worst defensive record this season, even worse than rock bottom Sheffield United, who of course were relegated themselves a few weeks ago. And whilst at the other end of the pitch, scoring wise, they've struggled to find great consistency in front of goal as well, having accumulated the third worst goal tally and goals return of this season. And from the outside looking in at West Brom this season, I think I'd say that it is a complete mess down there right now. It was always going to be an uphill struggle to survive this campaign, don't get me wrong. I think many people, including myself, probably had predicted that West Brom would be going back down to the Championship at the end of this campaign, before a ball was even kicked, and predicting the outcome of this upcoming season, so to speak. And, you know, that's exactly how it's gone, in all fairness, and that's how it eventually all planned out. And you know, West Brom continue to be seen as this constantly yo-yoing club. They constantly yo-yo between the Premier League and the Championship, and they just yo-yo to and from between there. And you know, I guess you could see it, and you could see the things that I've talked about already in this video. You could talk about their goal scoring record this season. You could talk about their defensive record this season, both being very poor, not good enough for a team that is looking to survive this campaign. They've all contributed to their downfall. I think a lack of experience as well in key areas hasn't helped the club at all. And, you know, it just seems all doom and gloom for them. It's been a gloomy season overall for the Baggies, clearly. Relegation has just been that final nail in the coffin, and they will now begin to look at life back in the Championship for the next campaign. But, you know, I guess you could say that there were a few bright moments for this season. It hasn't all been a terrible season for them. If you are trying to put a positive spin on things, you can have a look at, I don't know, mainly the performances of the likes of goalkeeper Sam Johnston and playmaker Matheus Pereira. They've both played very well this season. They've both caught the eye this season. But with relegation, you can kind of expect that Premier League teams will start to circle around signing some of their best players. The question now is, will they be able to keep them good players going forward and as they look to instantly bounce back into the top flight once again, of course, as the Championship looks to welcome them back with open arms. And that's what really leads me on to my next question. What will become of West Brom now? Will Sam Allardyce stay? Will Sam Allardyce go? Will their best players stay, or will they go? These are the questions that will all need to be answered in the very near future as the club prepare to begin to look at life back in the Championship once more. We all know that the Championship is a very crazy and as just as unpredictable as any other league. But if the club can keep Big Sam and keep their big players, while strengthening in other areas that you'd hope that they would achieve if you're a West Brom fan, of course, I think you'd have to consider them as one of the favourites to get promoted for next season. I genuinely do. I genuinely think that they have the experience of obviously their manager. They'll have the experience of being in the Premier League from last season, and most of that team are still there from a couple of seasons ago, where of course they actually went up to the Premier League to begin with. I think that you'd have to consider that they will be one of the favourites to hit promotion next season. It'll be a tough task, of course it will be. Like I say, the Championship is no walk in the park. It is no easy task, but of course, like I say, the Baggies definitely have the capabilities and the players within their ranks, the manager and so on and so forth, in order to make that a reality once more and to be back in the top flight division again. The Baggies can certainly build something there to challenge for the promotion places next season. But of course, on the flip side, if Sam Allardyce does leave, it would be a little more dependent on how next season will go for them, on who the club will bring in. I don't know too much about how they're run, but from the bit of research that I did, the brief research that I conducted before this video, I can sort of get the feeling that the club is another one of those clubs that is run more like a business than it is a football club. But it will be interesting to see how this club goes from here, how they go about dealing with the relegation, and how they go about their business back in the Championship for the next campaign. But of course, as I always say, these are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of West Brom's season, this campaign? What do you make of Sam Allardyce's role during this campaign? Will he stay? Will he go? How do you think West Brom will deal with life back in the Championship next season? I'd love to know your thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, whatever you want to call it, on everything to do with West Brom this season and predictions for next. I'm sure they'll all make for interesting reading down in the comment section below. Otherwise, hit the like button on if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things will always and forever be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch, this has been another Fletch Talks video, and I will see and speak with you all again soon in another video.